Welcome everyone to the Sewer Advisory Committee meeting, October 5th. We welcome Martinary on Zoom. Hello. And we're getting started with approval of the minutes from the 17th.
Also move.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Those minutes going right away to the Rotary Drum Thickener.
All right. So we have continued work with Train, the ESCO on Sharples replacement. Now projected to go into July 2023 due to the lead time on the equipment. The piece of equipment has been ordered from AC. We had a meeting, a kickoff meeting, September 26th for the project, and got word from DES. Notice to proceed from DES on 9/26. So we're in it now. No backing out. Yeah, fun. Yeah, it was a process.
All right.
Yeah, so lots of additional reporting and sampling this year, and more years to come. Currently, we see it reflecting on the budget this year and next year as well. We did apply for that GNP available grant funding for the SWRF through the Department of Ecology. So the updates on that is Ecology expects to have the agreements out for signature by 9/26, so September 26th. We actually didn't get any of those, so that's where we're at on that. Approximately 119,000 grant funding listed for the SWRF. Kind of update on current loadings, where we currently stand at the 215,000 action level. Our total pounds today is 103,295 at the end of August. So approximately 13,000 pounds per month average. With the current numbers, we would come in at around 160,000. We average it out for the annual loading, which is under the action level. We continue doing some strategies in-house for reduction, but it comes with limits. And that is all I have on that.
Good thing for dry summer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, dry summer is a lot of
Very
nutrients, so high nutrients in the summertime.
Wait till that first rainfall.
Oh, I
Goes.
Yeah.
You'll get everything,
Okay. MPDS permit.
So on the NPDS permit, we still have the outfall inspection still pending. That's due for completion by permit renewal next year, June. Been having hard times trying to schedule people in for that. Just people are busy. Industrial user survey is still in progress. We actually just received some more surveys from the city this last week. Currently, we're trying to get accredited for in-house testing for the nutrient test. We've been having a lot of issues getting stuff back in a timely manner from the labs that we use around here. There's actually only one Spectra. So we're back and forth with Ecology right now on the requirements and some of the stuff we have to do. We do have continued issues submitting the required discharge monitoring reports, probably since June of this year. Every month I've submitted them and had to resubmit them. And I guess I'm only telling you guys because you get the notifications every month. And so sometimes it's 2 and 3 times. We just got August final week of testing last week, the end of September. So I resubmitted it again, but that was actually the second time I've done both of those, because as we get lab data, it's pretty crazy. It's coming in at, that was almost 2 months. It was the first week of August we were waiting for. So lots of issues there. So that's really why we're trying to get accredited, and just a notification. Right now, it currently just goes to City of Port Orchard, Public Works. The copy of the DMR, it used to go to Mark, and then right now it's on there for City of Public Works. So you'll probably see like at least 2 of those submittals a month if you guys are the ones looking at them. And that's what it is. We have to submit them so they're not late by the 15th of each month. And then when we get the data, they're aware of it, and we're just resubmitting it each time we get new data. It's triple step each time, but that's how we're doing it.
Is there a fee for each submittal?
No, there kind of is a fee because I get paid the whole time I'm doing it, so. If I have to do it over and over again, normally you'd be like, how come this guy can't do it right the first time?
It takes a few hours to get together, submit it, so every time you break it open and add stuff, you go through that whole process from step one. It's really good.
So it's like 2 hours every time.
You're just really doing all the calculations again for the whole month, every time you add all the averages, so it's kind of a silly little process.
So I'm wondering if you could do your submittal by the 15th and then not do any more submittals until you get all of the information. So you're at least only doing it twice per month.
Yeah, so twice per bid. So it's per bid.
Motorcycle, yeah.
Yeah, so it's still, 4 submittals. So you guys would get 4 if I'm just doing 2 of them twice a month.
I thought you were saying you were doing it multiple times every time you got new information. I misunderstood.
So this month actually happened like that because August for 3 times the TKN, one of the nutrient samples were out of holding time, and they told us after they already sent it to us twice. So we actually got the last one in on August 31st. And they told us on the last day, hey, sorry, that last one was out of holding time as well. I'm like, well, dang, we still have the composite samples from yesterday. It's the 31st. Let's go run it up there and get that one in. So it was a pretty rough one.
But the biggest problem is that DOE requires all these new testing. And of course, the labs can't hire the personnel to do the tests. So you're in that catch-22. It's hard to hire people now. And so it's really, it should have been phased in, maybe, DOE had, but everybody has hindsight, so.
Yeah, so this week we took some nutrient samples up, but not just the sampling time and trying to get it in, but they had ran out of the bottles that we use for the nutrients to submit to them. So they gave us smaller bottles to 200 mils, and they're like, can you just double it for the samples? And so the last time we went, they didn't have any. And so we brought, smaller bottles still. And so we brought them in this week, and they're like, hey, so there's not enough sample here to run this test. I got a call, and I'm like, well, those are the bottles you gave us. And they didn't have any samples available for pickup. So I'm like, what do you want me to do? Bring in a milk jug? Like that actually happened this week. They had no bottles for us to pick up. So it's pretty fun, dealing with it right now. So maybe next time we just buy a bunch of milk jugs and.
By the gallon size? What size are they?
You should have at least between 750 and 1,000 mils. Supply of 400.
Yeah, they just handed us a bunch of small bottles, and it's like, can you put them all in here? And each one has sulfuric. So you're dropping sulfuric in each one. It's a fun little process right now for sure on that.
Have you investigated a different lab?
They're all around, belong to Spectra. So Twist up in Polsbo is actually Spectra.
Yeah, no, there's one in like South Tacoma.
So Tacoma is actually Spectra as well. There's one on 72nd, Water Management,
Yes.
and they're not taking anybody,
Oh, they're not.
and they're just overwhelmed right now.
That's the one that I was thinking.
Yeah, so there's one off 72nd and by the Kmart over there or whatever. Yeah, they're not taking
They're
it.
those that do our acute chronic toxicity testing, right?
So now King County does ours, yeah. Yeah, Tacoma Water Management Labs won't take anybody right now.
Does anybody want to start a business?
Yeah, really, huh?
So we're trying to do that right
Regulation
now.
process is kind of lengthy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's hard to get accredited right now because that process in itself is pretty fun. They're backed up anyway on everything, just like you would think. You see their job postings online.
I was gonna say, it sounds like it's hard to get staffing, so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, you
exactly.
talked last time about in-house testing and getting accredited for that.
right.
And you're saying now you're still gonna pursue that perhaps?
We're still trying to. Actually, we got some communication back from the Manchester. That's where the ecology accreditation lab is, and so communicating back and forth, telling us what we got to do. So that's really where we're at right now. You've already.
You're aware that they had a fire in that lab this month, so. I didn't realize that.
No.
Oh, yeah.
In
Where,
Manchester?
They had
The
a,
only reason I know is I live down there.
Oh, yeah.
Fire
So you
trucks
see this
there.
fire?
yeah, and
Ooh,
so
yeah.
they had some issues and they actually were contracting some of their work out during that. One of their for doing their TKNs were damaged, so. Yeah, they were subcontracting and having issues as well. And Spectra was trying to subcontract some of our nutrient results, and the lab they were trying to subcontract with failed to test them within holding time, so it's been fun for sure. And I don't even really know what to say on that, because there's no,
No real answer.
yeah.
Yeah, it's, you
They're-
don't have an answer.
They're keeping, ecology's keeping a log of lab errors, long wait times, incorrect sampling. But if you take away the only lab that's doing it, then,
No, you can't do that.
Better hurry.
So just FYI, like I said, all the costs are going up, they're increasing the rates on all the sampling. Same with King County, there, a lot of people are using the CPI and the inflation. And there's so many permits coming out, that we're paying for, so. It's,
Sounds like this could be a profit center. You guys get accredited. We can start testing for other people and charging.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why we haven't yet.
Well, we can't
Oh,
test.
that's right. Yeah, we can't. We had this discussion. Yeah, we can't.
Why is that, Randy? Like,
So the methods that we're looking to utilize are site specific. So you're not allowed site samples for those. So we don't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars. Gas chromatographs, those type of things. Site specific and potentially can match results and outflows between us and EPA. So consistent with all site specific methods that possibly.
Sounds like if we had the time, we could certainly cover the cost of tens of thousands of
I
dollars for
know,
equipment.
because we had discussed that and it was like, okay.
Yeah, that's a lot too. I mean, it's just another employee
Yeah.
and then you have to have redundancy on a lot of that equipment too. And you have to, every year it has to be certified, so.
Lab equipment's kind of like handicap, the price just quadrupled.
Yeah.
Even though you can go buy it anywhere else, when it's a lab, it's like.
Mhm.
But it sounds like there's not probably have a big market for it because nobody has people to run them when they buy them.
Yeah,
I think that. I'll be honest with you, here this part of my spiel on the budget here too, is that nobody anticipated ecology implementing so quick. A couple years ago, I told you folks in discussions with ecology, it was gonna be mid, possibly early 2030s before this was even gonna be implemented. Ecology, because of their lawsuit, and they're not very forthcoming with that information as to why, but they felt that they needed to expedite the implementation of this. So I don't think there was any outside planning to be able to take care of all these laboratory requirements or these analytical testings that are being pushed and enforced on it. These sort of treatment plants are not gonna go out and say, if we walk in here and say, hey, we want, $180,000 next year to buy some lab equipment on what might happen.
Yeah.
And, oh, by the way, we need another full-time employee and another $50,000-$60,000 a year of supplies and all this stuff. It's just not gonna be an easy sell. When we know there's gonna be changes coming in the next permit cycle. They've said that this is what's going on now, but things could become more stringent. It could be different. They're not really forthcoming on what they're looking at. We know that it's going to continue to a degree, but we just don't know exactly what they're gonna require. Ecology doesn't know either.
Just wondering how the little treatment plants, like the smaller, not so rich treatment plants, I wonder how they're all.
Well, there was testing different testing criteria based on the size of the facility.
Oh, okay, because they're
So-
kind of,
If you get into really large ones like King County,
Right.
not a big deal. They
Yeah,
have
well,
so much money,
yeah.
they have their own.
Right.
They have a huge lab. That's why we sent some of our
right,
samples there through an agreement.
but I know there's like these little small ones kind of out there.
yeah, small users have limited,
Limited testing.
limited testing. They're like, I think they have like an A card due in 5 years. But definitely the sampling is cut in half and
Hey, Carter, all known that he's little technology. Is that your budget update?
No, I haven't done budget
Okay,
update.
that's
I was
what I
gonna
think
roll
so.
into that.
Perfect.
So just the 2022 budget update, kind of what we chatted on, chemical costs, I guess, are the worst right now. Our polymer, I spoke on it before a little bit, it's 800 more per tote this year. With the one price increase projected to exceed the budget amount by about 10 to 15,000. We're currently over the budget amount for this by 3,300. With expectation of additional overages, like I said, 10 to 15, and that's using the exact same amount of totes that we used last year, just with that price increase. Chlorine, same thing, we just got another rate increase 2 weeks ago. So it's went up 4 times in 8 months, a total of 80 cents per gallon just this year. So it's, an average of $1,000 more per order. Projected to exceed that budget amount by 25K by like 3,800 estimated. You'll see in the budget, we did increase that with really so our contractual laboratory, as I spoke about, our laboratory services that we contract out to other places increase. So expected to exceed that by about 2,000 right now, unless something changes. We did get the industrial stormwater general permit this year, which was kind of unknown. So we wound up having that additional permit fee, as well as like fourth quarter sampling that we'll have to send out, some additional tests that we haven't paid for yet. Biosolids removal, we get hit with the fuel surcharge now, which we've never got hit with before. It's about $150 extra per load. Probably going to increase as well, or exceed that budget. It looks like we're going to remain close to it. Our budget for that is $95,000 a year, but currently we're at where we were at about 2,000 per haul, $1,800 to $2,000 per haul. We're at 2,500. With that fuel surcharge, and now every July they're hitting us with the CPI increase. So they have it listed again in July of 2023 to give us another one. So we're probably about, for hauling weekly, $10,000 a month, at the 2,500 rate. Yeah. So just, it's all going up, just kind of you see different numbers, than you've normally seen before on the chemicals. Really, it's just trying to remain in there. And there's almost on the chlorine, who could have estimated that you'd almost double your price per gallon, this year.
Well, wasn't there at one point availability was a concern? At least
It was
we haven't
kind
had
of
it
like
here
for
in
the
state
smaller,
price.
yeah. Thankfully, we ordered kind of bulk at the time, so in that time frame, we were loaded up a little bit.
It was a weather day.
Yeah, so it wasn't that much of a, but they tell you, we're gonna increase this. We're gonna need like your first 2 kids. What do? You give them your kids, you need the chlorine, right?
I had a couple that have a phone.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Let me know about next time, I'll throw them in the pot. And that is all I got for a budget update. Like I said, just trying to give you guys those are the worst cases that I've dealt with this year.
All right, everyone should have a copy of the proposed budget. Obviously, nutrient storm permit continues at the forefront consideration for the facility. We don't really have any substantial information to provide at this time. We know that in 2024, during the permit reissuance, there may be more stringent requirements. There may be additional testing. There may be, we're not really sure where ecology is going to focus their thoughts are. But talking to Marty, we do anticipate mid to late 2023. We will have almost 2 years worth of data. We can do comparatives and see if we can kind of extrapolate out project based on that data set. What we're looking at in the future for any facility needs, and then start the process and see that capital plan, having comprehensive engineering to ensure that we can maximize the capacity within the So, but we're still, don't really have enough data to go down that road right now. The 2023 operating budget incorporates a continued funding formula of $22.50 per ERU for the city and West Sound to pay for treatment services. The operation fund revenues for 2023 are $3,305,810,000 with total expenditures of $2,805,200. Operating fund expenditures exclude a planned transfer to the capital fund of 15% of the revenue of $495,872, and the projected capital fund expenditures for 2023 are $1,550,277. 2023, as far as personnel and staffing, I'm giving you kind of the executive summary of what's contained within this budget here. Minor staffing changes proposed, a restructuring of the maintenance supervisor position to a lead operator position is planned. When the current maintenance supervisor retires in the first half of 2023. The 2023 proposed budget includes budgeted salary levels to ensure sufficient funding for a cost of living adjustment determined by the board of commissioners. The inclusion of a period of transition for the onboarding of the lead operator position, deletion of the maintenance supervisor position, and planned staff step increases. There are no current recommendations to increase the overall number of staff, even though the workload is increasing based on some of these new requirements. Inflationary and supply chain impacts. Squirf, as you folks have, and West Sound has too, has seen various inflationary impacts during the 2022 fiscal year, which continue. Matter of fact, last week, our folks were told that when we get prices from some of our suppliers, the price is good to the close of business. That's it. They're not going to guarantee it past the close of business that day. So if you want it, buy it. Kind of puts us in a position to look at possibly just buying things and then canceling orders. You know, it's just crazy. Let's see. Currently in 2022, the NRC cited CCI inflation rate, that's the engineering construction cost index inflation rate. Basically, that gives you an overall view based on an index of what construction costs are. The rate's approximately 8%, just a little over 8% for the year, but it's not a complete year yet. The operating costs associated with materials and supplies received has risen generally at or above the inflation rate. It's kind of being kind there. In most cases, it's been well above the inflation rate. Notable budgetary increases for the 2023 proposed budget include laboratory supplies, a 58% increase budget. Plant lubes, oils, diesels, even though it's a 30% increase, it's kind of minor. We don't use a lot of hydrocarbons down there. Chemicals, unfortunately, we're looking at a 40% increase. General liability insurance is a 9% increase. Biosolids disposal with the fuel surcharges and the increases, we're looking at a 21% increase in those costs for 2023. Annual software maintenance is, I threw this one in there because it was low, and it was kind of nice to see something below the inflation rate of 7%. Outside services are projected to have a cost increase to approximately 75%. It is hard to get consistency in bids. We put things out, it is all over the place, and there seems to be no commonality or for small outside services. The only ones that are holding fairly consistent are those types of services that we already have contracted, such as like exterminators, janitorial, those type of things. The other ones seem to be all over the place. Marty kind of alluded to permits and licensing. You're looking at a 28% increase for next year. Salaries and benefits, a 9.27% increase. Just to give you an idea of what's going on in some of these areas, medical, dental, vision, and life insurance benefits, the district's got a contract with the healthcare authority. early imposition of nutrient shell permit requirements in 2022.
Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt you guys, but the city is muted. I can't hear anybody any longer.
Do that.
I don't know.
There it went. Okay, now we're back. Thank you.
What did you miss?
About the last 2 minutes.
Oh,
You want me to go back? Did you hear us talking about yet?
No, I don't need to hear about that.
Good. All right, so I'll just start with that paragraph again. City and district are contributing 200,000 a year from your capital funds, collect corporate action fees, to help create debt obligation. With the retirement in 2022, the Public Works Trust Fund loan number 1 and Aaron Capital Public Works Trust Fund loan number 2, which will occur in 2024. This funding source directly into the operating budget to address debt obligation will no longer be necessary. However, you will find in the budget that we have taken those monies and redirected those to the capital fund to facilitate the process of building the capital facilities, or excuse me, capital fund balance to deal with some of these issues that we perceive. Capital improvement program budget is prepared and presented for approval at the same time as the operating budget in order to assess accurately the impact of the project on operating costs. Capital improvement fund is budgeted in multi-year format. However, only the current year budget year is formally adopted. Myself and Marty project capital improvement expenses based on request and best available information. And it's kind of interesting. One thing that I did put in here, we'll talk about this in a minute, but the notable capital expenditures proposed for fiscal year 2023, totaling 1.5 million, are identified as following. Procurement of some ammonia analyzers to help with controlling the nutrients and trying to improve process control for nutrient removal. 2 primary clarifier skimmer replacements. They did replace one out of equipment replacement, I believe, in 2022. And so we did not know if we were going to go bad. We thought we'd get a few more years out of them. That didn't happen. They need to be replaced. Also, we've got unplanned equipment replacement, which is a standard that we put in there. And we had failure on the generator load bank to be replaced. One of the 3 conventional grit pumps, we'll be working with the other ones. It's 16 years. And of course, you know, the replacement of the Sharples thickening centrifuge equipment, which is a carryover from 2022. Vehicle replacement, the 2010 Escape and the 2000 Nissan Rogue. That's a used vehicle being purchased from West Sound that we did not use. We use very infrequently. So we gave the treatment plan an offer for a good deal on that.
Because, yeah, 14,000. So the,
Yeah.
we started looking on DES for the price of all-wheel drive SUV kind of, and the base prices were pretty nuts. So their fair market value for this Nissan Rogue was limited miles. I think it had 11,000, and so it's marketed at 27,000. So yeah, the rate of 14,000 is a pretty good deal. It's a 2016, right?
2017.
17.
So what the district did is it took the purchase price and it took its depreciation value over it, and then turned around and offered it to the treatment plant for that actual appreciated value.
I have a question for you. Our finance director is in the final throes of our new 2-year budget, and I'm wondering if you've shared these increases, planned increases with him.
Over a month ago, and then we had a Zoom meeting last week.
Okay, thank you.
Our Noah's fully on board.
Okay.
What's going on, yeah.
So,
So,
I wanted to know if I needed to go marching in there.
no,
No.
and then I'll email him a copy of the snow. We had talked, and I sent him a message because you guys are doing a biennial budget.
Right.
And he needed numbers for the next 2 years, and I said, well, instead of me giving you numbers, let me give you just a brief summary of what I'm looking at.
Okay.
Pending, so he's gonna incorporate that into his budget, not knowing if, things get approved or whatever, but he's still gonna incorporate that for the final.
Randy, am I reading this correctly on your capital program? You have projected the capital fund reserve, capital revenue, total project capital funds to be a total of 103 million out over the 2043.
Right, that's a cumulative total of all the balances, but that's not gonna be your ending
Okay,
balance.
we've got a cumulative total of 103, we've got a cumulative total of expenditures of 26.
I understand that we have a. I have to go back and check Excel. and see if I-
It's just barely 75 million, I'm just curious.
So that's total.
My notice or,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, lots of them.
yeah, apparently.
Yeah, I'll go back and check those. This should be this total here should be the total of the expenditures, obviously, over that period of time. And then that should be the total of projected total revenues is a bad term for it. It's not all revenues. Funds, but it's a cumulative total, but it doesn't
Well, so it's
doesn't
your
really take
expenditure.
it and subtract those back out from that.
Well, I can do the arithmetic, but cumulative total of revenue coming in is 103,
Correct.
and the cumulative total of expenditures going out is 26.
26, right.
So there's 75 sitting in a reserve somewhere, or
No,
I'm just
so
curious as to where that difference.
I'll go back and take a look. at this.
Okay.
I'm not really sure where or if there's an error.
Okay.
I've got a spreadsheet, I plugged it
It
in.
seems like if we're saving up for something, that's one thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're spending a whole lot or contributing a lot of money to capital improvements that aren't being made.
In all honesty, you shouldn't really have totals in that number section.
Well, we should have a total. We're collecting and whatever we collect should equal at least what we're spending.
Okay, so if you take your first column and you add those numbers together and then you subtract what those are, first column and the next with projections of revenue and stuff. Some of this is guesstimation should give you about what we're expecting to do. There
Okay,
is.
but you've got, again, we'll use the first column. I don't want to be a dead horse, but you've got 3.5 million coming in revenue and 1.5 going out in expenditures. So even in one column, they don't balance. So,
Right, yeah. So I'll have to look, we did
Okay.
move some rows around, and I can correct that, we did move some rows around, and that may have messed up the spreadsheet some. It didn't, so one of the challenges we've had, I'll just be honest with you, we went to the Teams. I don't know if you've used this, or Excel and stuff is in Teams. It doesn't play nice, so next year, as far as budget, we're going to the full Office 365 and getting away from that. That's what we have. Yeah, very limited. It doesn't show the errors. It's a mess. I would advise against it if you're looking at it. Teams is great, but it's as far as the office suites, not so much.
but it just drew my attention to it when you're projecting an increase in the ERU rate towards a capital fund. If we go back to 2 to 3. Comparing that with, okay, this is how much we're gonna collect, and then it's how much are we gonna spend, it seems like unless we have more expenditures or this formula error there.
Very well could be because we subtract, or we.
It could be, but
eliminated
could you
some of
look at it,
these-
because right
these
now what you're
upper ones,
presenting
yeah.
us doesn't balance.
So if you look at 2023, we should be good there with that call. That's it.
If you look at, again, you're gonna generate 3.5 worth of money coming in up above. And 1.5 going out, just 2023 doesn't balance.
Okay,
There's $2
I'll take a
million
look at it.
difference.
Not a problem. So one thing I wanted to point out to you folks is I did do an ENR CCI index history. And so what we do is, in this particular one, was a cost escalation of 3% per year. And this is how we came up with 3%, is when we looked at this period from 2011, 2021, we had a 2.9% increase, roughly year-over-year cost on average. And so that's where the 3% came into the cost escalation. With the DNR CCI we're sitting right now, there's going to be near 3.5% next year. So there's going to be some significant price changes or costing changes that are going to happen. And unfortunately, because of the lack of consistency or being able to project what the market's going to be, we're just going to have to go out and start reshopping costs again to find out where we're at with things. The only good thing that's really come this year when it comes to inflation is the manufacturer of the rotary drum ticker is willing to hold the price they quoted last year. Other than that, it has been all over the place, and it has been a lot of work on Marty's part to hold the ESCOs and try to get these contracts all completed to hold these prices where they're at. Nobody wants to commit to anything. So it's been really challenging about that. So as you go through, there's nothing that has changed in this from previous years as far as how this budget's laid out. We continue to simplify it. You can see that on page 8, we are roughly over $700,000 in debt. That will be retiring forward, and we're looking forward to that debt dropping off. You see on page 9, you see where that 200,000 revenue 2 lines is being omitted. It will now be in that capital. Directly, everything else pretty much speaks for itself. There is nothing that is crazy in here, any different than any other year. So we are diminishing those transfers in from the operating fund to the capital fund, utilizing that 400,000 from those treatment capital charges, those facility construction fees to go into the capital. So any other questions?
Yeah, as a matter of fact. On page 9. You show an increase, not compared budgets to proposed budgets, not actual. Your salaries going from 807 to 882. And yet your benefits, which usually are commensurate with salaries, is going down $300.
Well, if you look
at those numbers,
so we have been able to work with L&I, and we've been able to negotiate with our third-party administrator. So the staff down at the treatment plant, when they're going non-operational type things, like they're in the office or anything, they're coming in a lower risk class. So we're able to split those risk class on those employees. So that's one chart. You notice the employee medical benefits insurance is going up.
Yeah.
And the benefits and pensions are going down. They were a little high, and let's see, our FICA is going up a little bit, so you're not paying the taxes a little bit. But basically, you're only looking at a difference of $300 on the difference overall. We have tried to trim this budget as tight as we can.
no, I'm
Yeah.
I'm just the anomaly of your salaries going up and your pensions, benefits going down, and generally they're consistent with each other, so that's why I asked the question.
Yeah, we were really surprised, to be honest with you, and how much we saved. Plus, we belong to a retro program, and we get a substantial amount of money back that gets kicked back to the treatment plant, and we're projecting that we're going to have that type of consistency.
From Illinois.
Folks do the retro program.
I don't know if they do at the city, at not Edgewood, we did.
You got self-insured.
No, we have Association of Washington Cities.
Yeah, we have a full program. Yeah, this is for LNI,
This
so
it's retrospective rating program.
you don't have any injuries or accidents, you get a certain amount of money back in the year, to determine what it is. We get into a pool with a bunch of other agencies and then rate it as one. Which is always interesting because you're playing the gamble on where to be. But getting the third-party administrator to work with them, we still have one risk class we're working on. But allowing staff to, if they're in the office, instead of the field, doing paperwork or reports, to be able to come in at 19 cents an hour versus, I know, what is it, $1.09 or something like that. It adds up to a substantial amount of money.
I know that Noah was looking at it when I first started working here because he found out that I administered one where I used to be, and he was asking me all kinds of questions about it, but I don't know if he ever got into it.
Well, Illinois is not the easiest people to deal with.
No.
This one that we're doing on this rate class, or the risk classification, it has been, let's say 6-7 months, and we still haven't got an answer out of it.
Like the state examiner's office.
So it's been a little difficult.
But they've only had to pay out, we had to pay extra three years out of 20.
Consider the 40% increase in chemicals, that's huge.
Yeah, I saw that.
So why do you anticipate such a change in the state auditor?
Oh, because they're just, we're notified that they're coming in early, so the bulk of their time is going to be this year, not next year.
But also because of COVID, wasn't it? They were doing it virtual.
The last one we did with the state auditor was virtual, but they're actually coming in. We
Yeah.
just got notified a couple of weeks ago that they're actually supposed to be here, I think.
Next week.
Yeah, they're starting next week.
Staying or something.
Wow, they notify now? I was at Manchester, they would show up at usually at 3:30 on Friday afternoon.
Well, they notified us to let us know that they're going to be submitting preliminary requests for information next week. When they're gonna be on site, I'm not sure, but we weren't anticipating them. Originally, when we talked to them, it was going to be early December at best. And last time they were there 3.5 months. So when we did it, it was projected that, there would be this, they were gonna come earlier, because we asked if they could get it done in 1 year. The state runs June to June, we don't run June to June. And that didn't work out. So we thought they were gonna be here this year. Then they said, no, we're probably not gonna be there until December or maybe January. And they came back and said, no, we're coming.
They walked in at 3:30, I'll never forget this, at 3:30 on Friday afternoon, showed me your badge and said, give me your petty cash, I'll count it. And so we happened to be the first, so I called all the other office managers. He said, oh, they're doing water districts, be prepared. Petty cash is what they're gonna hit first. And she sat there and listened to me make the phone calls. There's nothing she could do about it.
Seems really odd.
That's the auditor's office.
That's what they do.
They're gonna just want everything.
They pick something hard to hit, really hard. And that time it happened to be petty cash.
Well, it's whatever they found. I mean, when they're doing these audits and they find something, I'll guarantee you the next city or district's gonna get nailed for the same thing to see if you're doing it right. And do you have enough cross checks? You know, I mean,
What would you use contractual?
Contractual engineering might be something that popped up that we didn't plan. Could be, or say something comes up and have a failed system and we need to hire an engineer or something.
The city would be the same thing as we call it on call.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, we have an on-call contract with Shore Engineering. That we can call them. West Sound's used them, the plant really hasn't used them for it. Next year, we are in, start the process of looking for outside engineering. We have so many projects going on. And money that we're spending on outside engineering services, would easily have an on-site engineer to. some of that.
Good luck.
you're not
Yeah.
Talk about challenging finding employees.
I know.
well, just find a regular workers.
I know, yeah.
We had four
We gotta make sure we get
applications,
customer
only one
Five,
qualified.
got five. We got another one this week.
Wait,
Five applications in 3 months for a position.
Isn't that incredible?
it's just, it's
just
not so,
stunning.
nobody wants to work.
No, but it's the way it all over, you know, the state run, it's the same thing, they're begging.
Well, the state pays so poor, I
Yeah.
can understand.
Well, I don't know, we just had somebody apply for the ferry, he had put on his application, he's making $140,000 a year.
The ferry is a whole different.
Yeah, because the state
They're
has,
the inland boats and
yeah, they have.
I mean, I'd go to
state
work in
has
ferries
a
in a
different
heartbeat.
budget, you know.
those guys are,
Like we were
just
Department
the,
of Veterans
Hiring.
Affairs.
yeah, just the ticket takers. I can't remember what they were making. I think they were making 60,000 back 20 years ago.
I know.
It was like, I mean, guys on the boat. My niece was a captain, on there. He told me, when he went to get the job, he said, I've been offered this job from the state ferry system. I said, go to work, don't worry about it. He ended up being a captain. That's a
Just another, seem to be picking on capital, but
No, go ahead.
you're starting 23 with the 2.2 million getting fund balance. You're going to be bringing in 880,000, which is
Right.
3 million. You're planning to spend 1.5 million. And I'm curious, you're bringing in 495,000 as operating transfer in. Why you need to do that?
Because West Sound's financial policies require 15% of revenue to get transferred to the capital fund. So we transfer 15%.
Even though you don't need it.
Well, I don't know about not needing it. There's going to definitely be a need for those capital funds. You've got an aging facility, you've got nutrient.
No,
You've got expanding growth.
I'm only looking at
There's definitely a need.
the annual, the long term is on this one, you're gonna
Right.
try to get corrected, but I was just looking at the 1 year that. So you're taking 15% regardless of whether you need it or not.
We
And then you're-
anticipate there's gonna be some high dollar items that are going to be associated. I think we're kind of smoothly floating along with this nutrients general permit. But I think here coming this next permit cycle, and maybe I am overly conservative. I don't think it's gonna be as friendly to us. Because there is a rumor out there that there's a big push for ecology to expand or
But
increase
when
the
that be
timeline.
captured in your projected year of capital needs?
Yeah,
Well, there is a section down here, if you notice, there's a facility study for engineering in 2027. And at that point in time, we will be looking at how we're going to address some of these future needs and also looking at what we're gonna have to do to make sure that we have services available for the city.
So that would affect your budgets beyond 2027, once you know what that's going to be, but
We don't know.
right now you don't know, so.
I wish I did, believe me, because it.
Well, I'm used to looking at your projections and
Right. I wouldn't.
you projected your revenue, but we're back onto this sheet. I don't want to beat that horse again, so. But I was just curious about 2023. You're bringing in adequate funding to cover your expenditures. With excess, you're gonna end up the year with, well, with that 500,000 transferred in, 2 million to start 2024 was. Okay.
As was discussed back in 2019 or 2018, one of the things the city and district had discussed was trying to build capital so that when we needed to expand, build another plant, whatever needed to happen,
I
we didn't
understand.
have to go instead of debt. We had originally thought that this would start, we would do this after these loans were paid off. We were gonna put $500,000 a year into the fund and just kind of hang on to it, build that, thinking that the implementation, which would show them that was.
Well, at some point, what I'm used to is that you identify what is an appropriate level for a reserve for those unexpected things, and then you try to project out, as you have done in your out years, what you anticipate spending. So you should cover what you anticipate spending and have your adequate reserves. But you just don't keep throwing money into the bucket in case. That's what your reserves are for, so.
So you would like to see an identified reserve account then? A reserve
Well,
portion in the budget.
There should be a target, you know, what's the limit? Are we gonna have $100 million in a capital reserve?
That's, I guess we've talked about this before. So, and I like the idea of looking at the 20-year plan.
Yeah, me
But
too.
then when you start to try to put numbers, it's like, now, because you're right, I like the same thing. It's like, okay, in the next 20 years, you're gonna spend $15 million, but you're gonna bring in 100 and some million. So I'm going, well, where's the other 85 million?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
so that's to me, I like to get a hatchet, just cut the back part of that thing off, or not include numbers, because what is gonna happen, expansion of the plan, or what are the things down the road happen. But you're right with.
but you can only plan for what you know with a little bit of a cushion.
Yeah, with the numbers are there, then it's the same thing, I look at it like, well, I can take a shoe out. There's $85 million in 20 years floating around that aren't accounted for, so why are we spending more? The same thing.
I mean, for me, the bottom line is that our ratepayers and our taxpayers are not giving us their money so that we can save it for them in a savings account. And that's where when you get your reserves too high, all of a sudden it's like, what's the justification? And you can't just say, well, because I think, then you need to get a better idea of what.
I'd like to see the numbers
Yeah.
kind of more nailed down for the next 5 years. That's,
Yeah.
Well, each year you update it.
yeah, it's somewhat reasonable,
So-
but you have to, the community comes in and look at those numbers, they go, they say the same thing. Why am I paying more money
Yeah.
to have it sit in an account? But then like, well, it's gonna be spent. And then, but they're like, show me. You're like, well, okay, let's dig into
Well,
this.
it takes 6 years, we're only gonna be 2 million in reserves.
Yeah, like,
I said, if you look at 6 years out, we're only gonna be 2 million in reserves. I agree, when you get out here, it's
Speculation.
speculation, who knows where inflation's going, whether the dollar even
Well, you're
makes it.
speculating on both lines,
Yeah.
both the revenue as well as
Right.
expenditure. So it's
Right.
just, a budget is a guess. It's your
Yeah.
educated
Right, well,
guess.
especially after a
What's
certain
going
point,
on.
it's all,
That's
yes.
why I go to not putting the numbers there, because then you start to just add them together, they get really hard to explain to the people.
Correct,
They
yeah.
don't.
Yeah,
What,
what,
I asked the same question, why, what do you, in 20 years, you got $85 million sitting in a fund?
Right.
Why?
What's the other?
the smartest thing to do, and this is just my approach, is to take what your most expensive asset is and at least have a reserve. Have some kind of catastrophic failure or something, got money to cover it. What is that value? No, yet, because we really have that assessment of the assets, and also what processes and how this could potentially happen, and what that value is going to be.
Do you know what the asset is?
Um,
Not the amount, but what it is.
Well, I would say that one of the biggest liabilities that we have right now would be this whole solid tank system.
The which, I'm
The
sorry.
digesters, or
Digesters.
solid tank equipment. So you're probably looking at, in today's dollars, you're probably looking at about $6-7 million.
And when would you anticipate needing to replace it? What's the life expectancy? You can see where I'm going with this,
Right.
Well, the big,
Well, yeah, I mean,
We're going down a rabbit hole. I don't wanna go there,
but there is
Point
something
is
else
that
out
there's
there
gotta
that,
be some planning and
Yeah.
some
there's gotta be.
projections to justify.
I guess one of my things is we have this year, we have 3 new permits. You know, I talk about it all the time. I had 2 when we started and 3 new permits just this year.
Yeah.
And 2 of them were kind of unexpected, including the industrial stormwater.
That's
So
what
how do you-
happens. That's the operating budget. And that's why, as you just shared with us earlier this evening, well, I'm over here and I'm over there and why? And it's like,
Yeah.
cost of doing business.
So,
Okay.
you know, so when you look at, to me, the nutrient thing, it's really unknown. Like, they initially did the calculations based on a bootstrap for 3 years of data that was really not data. You know, everybody was doing monthly sampling. So when you look at stuff like that, where are they gonna go with this? We're turning in half the loading, you know, for action level. So when we do this optimization plan and submit this data for next year, there's just so much unknown. You know, what are you guys gonna do?
they may come and just drop our limit. We don't
So,
know.
yeah, and that's what they've done for plants that have done the,
Those are things that we have to deal with when they come to us. I mean, it's.
Right, but those cost money, and that means
It certainly
accelerated
does,
cash.
and we may have to face another public works trust loan or rate increases or whatever we're confronted with, but
there's
so when will you be able to check that for us?
I'll check it tomorrow. I'll pull it down and put it in some program here on.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll send it out to you folks, or send it to Jackie. Go through it.
yeah, another thing we're talking about, PFAS and the sludge. Maybe you won't be able to put the sludge down from certain areas because people are worried about the PFAS being transferred to like Eastern Washington. We're dumping the solids, biosolids.
There is talk about currently, I don't know if it's the same group or not, that was successful with the nutrients challenge event of trying to suspend any land applications in the state of Washington for biosolids. So if that happens, that
What are we
means.
supposed to do with it?
It'll.
And then we'll put it to the dump, but it's gonna be, the cost will be higher. You know,
Increase the cost.
this whole thing is just turning into a can of worms from the standpoint that, I mean, there's so many things coming at us, but I tell you, Lakewood's in really bad shape. I mean, they've got loans and stuff and grants, but the PFAS coming out of McCord and out of the Fort Lewis is they have 2 wells they are cleaning the PFAS out of. They got 3 more wells they had to shut down. I mean, and I know Woodby Island has problems with the PFAS and PFAS. I don't know what.
I don't know what PFAS is, so.
Well, what it is, what it is the chemical they use for firefighting in one of the
Okay,
cases.
It's in Teflon, it's in
Yeah.
any non-stickers.
It's also in microwave popcorn, believe it or not, but
Great.
Yeah. so, you know,
I mean,
And Teflon, and Teflon.
Teflon,
yeah. And the biggest problem is
firefighting foam.
nobody really knows where the government's gonna go on where the limits are really. They're starting to make limits, but nobody knows, does the stuff, how much harm does it do?
They just, I mean, this year's UCMR 5s are PFAS.
Yeah.
And so we're testing now, and once the test happens and it all gets back into the CDX system, then
Then they're gonna tell you what you.
EPA will start analyzing it, decide.
Here's one thing Larry Curls did for us. He went and tested for caffeine in our water system. All of our wells have caffeine in it. So anybody pours anything on the ground around here, it's getting into our aquifers. I mean, it's scary when you think what might be, I mean, down in Burley, they had, what's the stuff out of a transformer?
CBs.
Yeah, they found that some guy out there had a site on his property where he dumped that stuff.
Well, even in Longview, when we switched from surface water to groundwater, and we had very, very deep wells, they wanted to know where the water was coming from. So they did hundreds of chemical analyses and discovered that it was coming from the bottom of the center channel in the Columbia River. And that was feeding this aquifer.
Yeah.
And the reason they found that is because they were testing it for pharmaceuticals. You know what they found? The most prolific one?
Birth control.
Estrogen.
No, that's what I would think too. At Prozac.
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 We
The
figured it
Weather
was
Report
a-
was so
Well, I
bad.
That's all that we're going. He's gotta be the word going is, yeah. Yeah, it's Prozac. Well, they
See how that
identified water.
turns out in 5 years now, they've legalized all drugs.
Oh, yeah.
No, but it is weird. I mean, and I mean, it was kind of interesting when Larry showed us some results. I mean, it was like, oh. And
That's
of
because
course,
caffeine doesn't degrade.
yeah. But it is, anything that's dumped on our land anymore is getting into our water.
You have to just drink a glass of water and get your caffeine.
Or, yeah.
Well, that ain't gonna fly.
So, Marty, will you please send me your notes? Thank you.
Yeah, more to come on the biosector, see what happens, what's going on. This could be an issue for all fires in the state of Washington.
I think we put Mark to sleep. Are you there, Mark?
Oh, there you
Oh,
go.
there he is.
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
I need to drink some water and get some caffeine.
I really have no updates since last month. We've been dealing with the final 90, with the comments from the 90% plans and of course the raising of Bay Street and that whole plaza down there, so. I do have one thing that is not on the agenda because I didn't know about it until this evening, but
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like the plant
Congratulations,
again
guys.
got their award. So congratulations. I'll give you the congratulatory letter.
Oh,
But that'll probably be the last one we get since we always turn our
I know.
reports in.
I'll put the return reports like.
I mean, at least they changed the color this year, right?
Congratulations.
Sweet.
Perfect.
Pretty.
Oh,
Yeah,
congratulations.
grant check. is
Cute.
20.
Right.
What do you get one of those for that thing?
Yeah, as long as I just keep getting those, they give me a good job, guy.
So that's all I have.
Okay. The next proposed session.
What do you folks want to meet?
Well, yep, this year, or do we go into 2023?
We have to approve
We
the
have to
budget.
approve the budget, So I will give you the updates, and when would you like to meet?
Next week.
Usually we do it in November. First part of November.
Give us some time to go over it.
Halloween day.
Oh, no,
Well, same for me.
people won't want that.
The first Wednesday of November is the second. November.
There was a good day in November. Everybody
We
have
had been meeting on the third Wednesday. However, you called this one on the first in order to beat that deadline.
yeah.
No, John was busy next week.
Huh?
John was busy next week.
but next week would only be the second. I think it was the third.
No, it
wasn't it?
was me.
Oh, it was you?
Yeah.
And John was busy the third one?
Sorry, are we talking November or October?
October.
We were,
Okay.
They're talking October. They're talking October.
We're
We're now
setting up.
talking November.
Yesterday?
So we can do the third unless somebody has a comment.
The third Wednesday?
What's the?
So that was the 16th.
16.
Is everybody good for that day so far?
I won't be here.
Oh, you won't? Oh. Do you wanna go the 9th? Would that be better?
No, I can't do that, I'm be out of town from the 9th through the 19th.
Oh,
and then you're back to the
Yeah,
second.
but just leave. them out. But let's do that.
That's fine. Yeah, that was Wednesday.
The 7th?
You can do the last one, 30th.
The 7th of what?
Or 30th.
Second, I think is what the date was.
Are you
First
ready?
is the
The other one,
it's
the 30th?
Thanksgiving.
Last one is the 30th.
Coming over?
It's always,
Yeah, I'll be there.
yeah.
Actually. It's not, can we not have it too close to the beginning of November?
Not at the beginning of November.
Should we do it on the 16th? Is that
Well, what's,
okay?
I guess, like, what's the need?
We're gonna
Approve
approve
the
We have to vote on the
What's the
budget.
need to be approved by for the city?
Getting the
full
information.
council or-
Can it be approved by in a Zoom meeting?
Sorry,
We could.
The first year of COVID, you absolutely did it by vote
Mhm.
over, it wasn't even a meeting, you just did it by vote.
Well, why don't we do something along those lines?
Yeah, we could do that. We could just do a Zoom meeting if it's just to.
is that still legal?
I don't know.
It is for us, we created a policy that allows that. So,
Should we do that?
Sure,
It's gonna get
as
pretty
long as
busy.
it's legal,
Yeah, we'll double check on that.
I'm not going to jail over this place, I can tell you that.
Tony, is that legal?
we can always ask.
We'll find out. So
Well, if not, is the 16th good to me or?
let's aim for November 16th.
Okay, we'll aim for the 16th.
6:30 via Zoom.
Yeah,
Does that work for you, Mark?
well, either via Zoom or in person, whichever
Yeah.
works.
Yeah?
The 16th, I'll be out of the country.
Oh,
Oh,
Anywhere nice, maybe we could go join you and have a meeting.
yeah.
You see this view behind me? That's where I'll be.
hey, You taking the mayor with you?
Oh, no, not this time.
Okay.
So we can also do it early in December.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
We
I
would
have
just,
times and nights and I'm so busy.
Yeah, what's,
But if you go into the second week, it's not so bad.
but if we get a Zoom meeting,
Right, so actually, if we did, you know, like 7th,
of December. Good.
can I wait that long?
Is this gonna work?
we just need to have it, we won't be able to do our budget.
Oh, okay.
Let's go back to the 16th.
Yeah, let's just do the
November
16th.
16th.
Let's just tentatively put it in.
as a
either
Zoom
via
meeting
Zoom
unless it's
or
illegal
in
for the
person,
city.
whichever
Right,
works.
But you're not gonna be able, Barry, to be there on the 16th.
We could do a Zoom meeting.
well, you could,
Zoom or.
Can you do Zoom on the 16th or you can be
I'm
available?
gonna be 3 hours south of Lima, Peru, so.
oh,
Oh,
Maybe we should join you for.
yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, that's where we meet next.
But no, it's good. It's part of habitats for, it's not what you call it, for vaccine.
I see. How's the food?
Okay.
I don't know yet.
Oh, okay.
I know they say not to drink to the water, even ice.
Yeah,
Might
right.
be too much caffeine.
Yeah.
But I think that's.
there's 2 weeks in a row, that he'll be gone, the 9th and the.
But
But
you-
wasn't Mark gone on the 16th as well? Mark, are you gone on the 9th as well?
No, I leave the 14th and I come back the 28th.
But Jerry, you live on the 9th, right?
So I'm gonna ask you this, does it have to be on Wednesday?
Not for me.
Just can't be
Yeah,
a
that's
Tuesday,
Tuesday is a council meeting, so I
Oh,
can't do it
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
So first and third Monday.
unless we do it early
Before the council meeting?
before the council meeting.
We could do that.
What time?
If we did it on the second Tuesday,
November 8th.
November 8th, yeah, that, because we probably won't have, we're having a utility committee meeting October, but we're not gonna have, then we wouldn't have one in November, is that right, Tony?
Sure.
Well,
Good answer.
the 8th, I have a committee meeting on the 9th, or excuse me, the following Tuesday. I don't know if you guys are meeting with anything. Are there
It
any
sounds like
committee
we're
meetings?
not. It sounds like we're not. If we have an October meeting, then we're not meeting in November, right?
Correct.
Okay, so
Do it early.
let's
Yeah.
try it for the 8th.
The 8th of
Mark, that
November.
works and works for you too, right?
Sure.
Okay, let's try for the 8th.
5 PM then?
Yes, soon.
That's a Tuesday, you're understanding.
Yes,
Yeah, 8th, 5 PM Tuesday.
yes.
And that's gonna be Zoom, correct?
Correct, as long as it's legal.
If it's legal, we're going to do so.
Yeah, if not, we'll be here.
For us, does it make a difference? Because we're gonna have to be here for council meeting.
Yeah, an hour later, hour and a half later, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna come down here to hold a Zoom meeting just because I'm gonna have to walk out of this meeting into the next meeting,
Right.
so.
Right.
Okay,
It's a heck of a lot easier for me to be able to run the meeting from my office than having to mess with all this equipment.
Understand.
well, look, we're gonna aim for a Zoom meeting on the 8th. And John can just be at home. Before the council meeting.
Oh, but if you guys are gonna be here, I'm gonna have to. get
Oh,
the
you'll have to
equipment
be here
going.
anyway?
Well, yeah, I mean, somebody has to.
Run the-
Okay, okay,
Run set up for you.
I don't really care.
Okay, it's fine with me.
And I'll find out if it's kosher to be able to do that, so I gotta talk to Charlie tomorrow. So ask her the question.
All right.
Let
So,
me know so that I can put it out with the budget in the minutes, okay? Thank you.
okay, November 8th, and we're gonna figure out if it's gonna be here or Zoom.
5
Okay.
PM.
Sounds good. With that, we adjourn the meeting.
Bye, Mark.
All right, see you, everybody. See you November 8th.
Bye.
See you, Mark.
My kids are 20.
And my cookies.
You keep in touch with Ed and
We're gonna have to have.
Lyle and all the